Hello and welcome to another episode of Extra Time. And we are on location for episode 8, I believe, of Extra Time. Adam Peller and Jahmai Webster. We're at Fenway Park. Unfortunately, Sophia Yerkstovich could not be with us today, and she's missing out, man. We are making history on the pod today, Jahmai.
Yeah, that's right, man. Both at Fenway Park, both at two separate locations. This is a massive ballpark, and I couldn't find you if I tried.
I think if you tried, you could probably find me. You know this ballpark well enough by now. Yeah, we are at two separate locations. I'm in the Fenway studio, getting ready to do pre and post game coverage as we do for home games, which I love. Obviously, you got the ballpark right to my right, actually. I don't have it set up that way because the glare from the sun in the field, it would look like just like you're seeing the light and you're going, through the pearly gate. So we're not doing that. But I got the cool wall of
Yeah,
baseball
don't
behind me,
don't need
which
you
is
leaving us
no
anytime
man,
soon, man. Stay
no
here.
man. I'm good. I'm good. But the baseballs behind me are pretty cool because they're autographed by a number of guests we've had come in over the years, and yeah, it's just a cool place to be, man. It's a cool place to be, and I know right now where are you at?
I am in the press box actually. I guess this is the Dice K room. This is what they created when he was signed with the Red Sox because there was just an influx of Japanese media, so they had to find a place for those folks to work out of, and that's where I have seemed to 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 have hid to get this on the record. So that's where I'm at. I should have went in our booth, but TC and those guys are working. Um, they got a game to call, so here I am.
There you go. Wow. If that doesn't get you excited, I don't know what will. So the Red Sox wrapping up their homestand as we record this podcast. They won game one against the Blue Jays, lost game two of that series, had a rain out in game three. And the Padres have come to town. Padres just cleaning up so far in the first two games of the series. But, a number of storylines going in the series, Jemai. And one of them is the return of Xander Bogaerts to Fenway
Yeah,
Park. And obviously, a guy who is beloved here in Boston, won a World Series, two World Series titles with the Red Sox, was the face of the franchise along with Mookie. And both of those guys are gone. Obviously, Xander, signed with the organization when he was 16 years old. It was just a big part. There was a shock to the system when he signed that big deal with
hmm
the Padres. But I saw your conversation with him, and really, it's the same old Xander, man. Like, the smile just lights up the room, his personality, people love him. What was your interaction with him like this weekend?
I mean, all of the above, everything that you just mentioned. I mean, you know, it's funny. It feels like no time is lost. And last year, it felt like I was having a reunion tour with every former Red Sox. But this year, it's different for Xander because obviously we were in San Diego last year with the open schedule, so it wasn't as emotional, I suppose, when you return to the place where you spent a decade of your career. So catching up with him was like um, there was no time lost at all, and it was incredible because he's the same guy, still maintains the same jovial attitude, and it was good to talk with him. And he's injured right now, hoping to be back sometime after the All Star break because he fractured his shoulder in a very similar situation that happened to Trevor Story earlier in the year, and at Angel Stadium, the first series or the first road trip of the year, second series of the season. And I was talking to him about that, and he said, "Yeah, it would have been worse had I not kind of recoiled when I was laying out for the ball. It was a bases loaded situation, and obviously he was trying to make a play on an infield grounder right to the four hole because he's playing second base, so he was going to his left, and then he said he hit the ground, and he heard a crack immediately, and he was like, pull back. He said, had he not done that, it would have been the full weight of his body on there, probably be out for the season. But he's already swinging a bat right now. He's hoping to return again sometime after the All Star break. But it was just good to see him because he's just one of the good people in baseball, and not just because he's a good player, but because he's a good person. He cares about you, what's going on with you, and he's one of those guys who you can sit and talk to. And I think if it had been any other situation where it wasn't in the baseball world, if you met a guy like Xander Bogaerts outside of it and he wasn't a professional athlete, he treats you the exact same, which kind of makes him a great player. So it's always tough when you see guys like that leave because you're rooting for their success because of the type of people that they are, not so much because of the type of baseball player that they are, but you want to root for good people and you want them to do great things. So happy for him that he secured the bag in San Diego, in America's finest city. Not a bad place to be if you're going to finish out the rest of your baseball career, which he fully expects to do out there, the latter half of his career. And you know it was just it's good to see him, but it also is bittersweet because you realize the type of person that's left this organization, where the Red Sox are, that you no longer have in your everyday interactions. Same with Mookie Betts and Andrew Benintendi, all these guys who have gone, Jackie Bradley Jr., Chris Sale, even we met up with him earlier in the year in Atlanta. So it's professional sports, so you understand that it's cyclical and guys move on, they transition. Rarely do people end up in the same uniform that they started with. So it's a thing that you expect. But some guys you feel like, he should have been a Red Sox for his entire career.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And I was just thinking about that 2018 team for a second, all those players that you mentioned that were part of that before 2018, during 2018, and a little bit after 2018. I mean, all those guys are gone now, except with the exception of
Mm,
Rafael Devers.
yeah.
Rafi's the only one that's still there from those years, and it really was the end of an era. And I was thinking about it when you were talking about Xander and securing the bag in San Diego, the big deal. I think it was 290 over 11 years, which really raised a lot of eyebrows. People didn't expect him to
Yeah.
sign for that much money. That includes the Red Sox, I think, when they were talking about maybe bringing him back to Boston. But you never blame the player for that, right? I mean, there are three things, right? There's the business of baseball, there's the game of baseball, and then there's the human element of it, as you were
Mhm.
talking about it, right? It's like, you know, two of those things are really out of the player's control, right? The off the field stuff is something that's in their controls. The game of baseball, it is in their control, right? How they perform. So it's really the one thing that's out of their control. It's the business of baseball. It's the contracts. It's the money. It's what teams want to pay you, what teams don't want to pay you, and what you think your value is worth. And obviously, Xander's value, was high here. He meant a lot to people here in Boston. But at the end of the day, it was San Diego that was going on a shopping spree and picking up all these guys,
Yeah.
spending all money on them. But I was wondering, Jahmai, and again, like saw your conversation and saw the media scrum, saw how he was with the media. It didn't seem like there was any bitterness towards the Red Sox in his comments. Would you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. And I asked him that question, actually. I said, now that you've returned here, because again, last season in 23, he was healthy, fully healthy. He was playing with San Diego, and the Red Sox were there at Petco Park playing the Padres. But coming back home, so to speak, quote unquote, it's a different feel. Like you're coming back to the place where you came up. I mean, he debuted here again. He was signed here as a teenager, right? So I asked him, does this kind of bring a completion to your chapter as a member of the Red Sox? And he's like, yeah, I think so. I think now I can say, you know, that was a great part. No hard feelings. He mentioned it, no hard feelings because of that business side aspect. He felt like both sides, there was no animosity during his signing or the lack thereof of his contract extension. He feels like this is now full circle for him. So he's ready to begin or continue this next half of his career. But this was one of those things where he had to experience it to feel it, the emotion, and having that standing ovation and playing a video tribute of all his best moments ever as a member of the Red Sox. I mean, think about this when he was wearing number 72 in 2013. You know how guys, when they
Yeah.
first come up, they don't have really solid numbers. So it was all those things. And then winning World Series twice, during his time here, and all the accolades and everything that he accomplished. And it feels like now he can kind of put that behind him and start focusing on what they're doing in San Diego. And they're a team that's playing really well right now. It seems like this offense is hitting on all cylinders. So he was eager to get back in it. And he's going to have an MRI here when they transition over to Texas and just see where he's at. But he said he feels great. And the thing is healing pretty good. But um, it'll be a challenge, I guess, to probably find that rhythm for him again. But Xander, he always seems to figure it out.
Yeah, he does. And I was thinking about number 72 and thinking about the current Red Sox roster. You know, David Hamilton's wearing number 70, right? And you think
Yeah,
about players like that who come up and they go through speed bumps. I think Jaron Duran is a perfect example of that, right? A guy who had issues on the field, some issues off the field, dealing with mental health, overcoming those, becoming a very successful player. David Hamilton, when he was first called up, looked overwhelmed a little. Now he's catching up to the speed of the game a little bit. We'll see how things play out for him over time, but he's looked really good so far. And you can say that about some other young players as well. And I think that's sort of leading to my next question for you, Jahmai. In terms of covering the Red Sox and covering athletes over the years, and when you cover a team for an extended period of time, you see the same faces year in and year out. And in this case, since we're talking about Xander Bogaerts, watching his maturity and growth over the years, right? And so I started covering him as soon as he got called up to Boston in 2013. And I was in your position for a couple of years on and off, traveling with the team, watching his growth and development on the field, slowly becoming one of the stars on the Red Sox roster. It was really fun to watch. How much fun is it for you to see some of these young players now, watch them sort of come up, go through some struggles, and now experience success?
yeah, it's great. It's great to see that turnaround. And you mentioned Jaron Duran, and it's crazy to see where he has taken his game. You think about missing some fly balls a couple years ago and having a complete meltdown in Kansas City, and then Raimel Tapia hitting a inside the park home run after he misplayed that fly ball that went over his head, and kind of just watched it and stared, to becoming the player, the leader, and the athlete that he is for this team. He really is a table setter. So he's done so much great things for this team, and he should be an all-star. Hopefully we find out in short time what that situation looks like for him. But to see the turnaround is great, because you understand the hard work that these guys put in every single day, showing up. It is a major grind to be on the baseball schedule, and to have a body that's able to withhold 80 plus games at this point consecutively is impressive in this day and age, even though the pitch clock has, added years to my career, and, it's going to certainly add years to these people as well, who are actually playing the game on the field. But man, to see his turnaround has been great. And then David Hamilton, I mean, he came up and seemed like he was playing, with concrete in his feet. So not playing fast, kind of playing a little bit timid. And now to see what he's been able to turn into, almost hitting 300 now, and he's hitting for power. He's hitting line drives all over the ballpark. That's been great too. And that's kind of what this Red Sox team has been. They're getting these contributions from a lot of these young guys, which is contributed to a lot of where they are right now, in a position to be buyers as a trade deadline fastly approaches. So I don't know if I say I didn't fully expect this, but I thought this team would compete, because the Jefe at the helm, Alex Cora, he's going to be a guy who is going to get the best out of his players and maximize their talent 100%. But what they're doing right now has been impressive, and they're teetering, just a bit over 500. So it's all due because of what these young guys have been able to do. And like I said, Jaron Duran has been that. David Hamilton has been that. Emmanuel Valdez has been that since he got called up, or recalled, I should say, about a month ago. He's been just hitting the daylights out of the baseball. His defense has improved. So Wilyer Abreu, also another guy who's doing fantastic stuff. So to watch the development, it's been great. It's been great for sure, and makes it a lot more exciting, because you get a lot more competitive games, and these guys have been playing really well lately, with the exception of, I guess, the last two games that San Diego is coming here. So it's just a part of the ebbs and flows of a season. You can never get too high. You never get too low. You kind of just ride the wave and see where it takes you.
Yeah, yeah, you hit the nail on the head. It has been a lot of fun to watch the young players and their evolution. And and I was thinking as you were talking, because you are so close to the team, because you travel with the team, you're there in the team hotels, you're there every day. with the team, and you mentioned the young players, and we're getting to know them on the baseball field and seeing their maturation. But is there anybody that sort of stood out to you personality wise that you didn't know as well, maybe coming into the year that you're getting to know a little bit better, and you're saying, "Oh man, that guy's funny," or "That guy knows how to handle his business," or "Man, that guy's got some serious swagger." Is there anything that you can share with us about a particular player that sort of fits that category?
Yeah, that's a great question that you asked. And now you got me racking my brain to think about this one. I mean, it's always the usual suspects. The Tristan Costas, of course, this guy's incredible, and he's super funny. But actually, you know what? Not a young guy, but a guy that is not even playing right now, but it will be back maybe in a few weeks, hopefully, for making a couple rehab starts. That's Liam Hendricks is pretty hilarious. He's got this dry
Oh
humor.
yeah,
We had a moment in Cleveland, obviously, that kind of went a little bit viral, where we were doing the usual in-game interview and just catching up with him because he's been on the road a lot, which is not is it's kind of atypical for a player who's rehabbing, but because he has all this great um, philanthropic work with cancer patients because of his battle with cancer. So he meets with cancer patients in every city, and he really spends time with them, and talks to them about what he went through and vice versa, and what they're going through, and he's able to relate to them. But he's been on the road, so we decided to catch up with him one day, and we're in Cleveland, and obviously he's coming back from Tommy John surgery. So I go. I think my first question was, what's up, Liam? How are you? Where are you at in your rehab right now? And he goes, Cleveland. And I'm just like, dude. I mean, not literally, because we know you're in Cleveland, but like, where are you at in your progression, I guess. But it was kind of all part of his joke. But that was like one of the first times that I had that type of interaction with him, because you're not interviewing him on an everyday basis, but you start to figure out some of his humor and his quick wit. So he's been one of those guys that surprised me with that. Um, and I can't wait till he gets back out there and fully healthy, because I think he's gonna be a big contributor to this team. I mean, this is a guy who he's got 98, 99 in the tank. We'll see what
he
happens,
does.
coming back from Tommy John, but he's probably that guy for me. But what about you, man? I mean, you do it all. Obviously, we understand you're doing Red Sox today, but you've gotten really close with a lot of these Bruins guys, and we see Linus Ullmark traded to
Yeah.
Ottawa, and
Mhm.
they him and Jeremy Swayman, they had a great relationship, and everybody loves the goalie hug and all that stuff. I'm curious, what was he like to cover, and how much are you going to kind of miss his presence around the dressing room?
Yeah, I think the team's first and foremost going to miss him on the ice, off the ice. I think Linus was well liked for sure, and I had interactions with him. Obviously, like you do, interviewing players, you see each other in passing. You give a what's up, and I told the story before about Linus. Um, Again, it's just one of those things, right? So we do the walk off interviews at intermission, and then we do the walk off interviews. If the Bruins win, we'll get a one on one with a player with the Bruins backdrop, and right. So I interview the player, and normally I'm looking up at the player, right, because they're coming off they're wearing their skates, and they're super tall, right, and when a guy is tall as it is, and you add the skates like Linus 6'5", and
Oh
he's
man, is he really?
yeah, and then like
I
so he's
never knew he
supposed
was that tall.
yeah, dude is tall, and
Oh
so he's
man.
like 7 feet on skates, and so he comes off the ice here and doing a walk off, and I'm like, oh man, I'm like, usually it's not a problem for me, but like this time I'm like, man, this is just too much. Like I can
The disparity.
it was too much. And I'm like, man, like I can't do this. I'm like, he's like, well, I can get down on one knee. And I'm like, dude, you just played an entire game. Like, I'm not gonna make you get down on one knee to do this interview. So I did the entire interview on my tiptoes. So
Oh my goodness.
I just contracted the calves, got up there, and I was like, all right, come on, Pedro, let's go. Let's hold it steady. And so I did the entire interview, first time in my career on my tiptoes. And afterwards, he was like, oh man, that was pretty impressive. I'm like, oh, I appreciate that. Thank you very much. So I have a picture that I can post to social media capturing that moment with Linus, which was pretty cool. But the other times, so in certain rinks, there's the rinks are different shapes and sizes in terms of like the bench and how you get to the bench and all of those different things. And when it comes to the backup goalie, sometimes there's not room for the backup goalie on the bench, and so in that case, they either they sit in the room, or they come out and they sit like in one of the openings, like along the glass, and they bring out a chair and they sit down and they're like almost amongst the people, which is kind of funny to see, like this dude like in full goalie gear, like just sitting there. And usually, like that's me in my spot, and so that happened a couple of times with Sway, and it happened a couple of times with Linus, and being able to sort of watch the game with Linus was a lot of fun because you get to sort of see what he sees and how he's watching the game, right? Like, I mean, when we cover the games, Jahmai, like you're in the camera well, right? And so you're like
Yeah.
next to, you're on the bench, but you're not like sitting like right next to the player. And to me, that's like such an unusual like situation perspective, right? But man, I get to like sit right next to the player, kind of watch the game how he's watching it, and I really enjoyed that. So I did that a number of times with Linus as well. Um, and then you mentioned the other half of that, goalie combo, Jeremy Swayman. I really think that Linus helped push Jeremy to take his game to another level. When they
Yeah.
signed on, Swayman wasn't, the guy. Obviously, he was still, thought it was going to be Linus and Tuca, at the time, right? And
Right.
so,
That's right.
um, so Swayman emerges and, kind of develops into this, you know, star goalie in the league, and that's in part to the fact that he had a guy like Linus Olmark to push him. Um, so he'll be missed, and I'm sure he'll do well in Ottawa because again, when people heard about the Linus Olmark signing, a few years back, they didn't know much about him. He was coming from Buffalo, and people were sort of questioning that contract, and then all he did was turn out to be the Vezina Trophy winner and really
Yeah.
his game here in Boston. So he'll definitely be missed for sure. But if we could sort of pivot the conversation back, to being here at Fenway Park, Jahmai, I'm kind of curious about your routine when you come to the ballpark. I know it's different on day games, and it's different on getaway days at times as well. So Sunday afternoon, as we record it, my man, what's your process like coming to the park?
Well, I'm usually always rushing here with the three kids, so it's literally a mad dash to just get out the house. So that's always the difficult part, which is something that I still have yet to master. Um, just getting out the house first off, which every day is its own struggle. But um, I try to get here and with a little bit of time to spare. So, I park, obviously. I go in the players' parking lot, talk to the lot boys. My man James out there, little dap to
Yeah,
start the day. Talk a little ball. What's going on? Maybe,
he is
what he
very
expects from this
optimistic.
series.
Our
Oh,
guy James,
that's
very
that,
optimistic.
that's my man. That's my man. Shout out to the lot boys. They take care of us. And then after that, I'll go right into the dugout, walk through the clubhouse area, and if I have 10 minutes, I'll just kind of sit there and take a moment to breathe because I'm usually stuck in Boston traffic, which gets me fired up. You know what I mean? It has your blood boiling a little bit, so time to decompress for a moment, and then at that point, usually it's time to go into the clubhouse. So I'll go in there, look for whatever player interviews I can gather, any stories that I can tell for the day, see what trends maybe are going on, who's hot, who is pitching well, who is maybe even struggling, talk about some adjustments, depending on what guys have done over that series, over the last couple of series, or maybe in relation to who the team is playing on that particular night. So that's open for about 50 minutes. After that, the manager has his daily news conference. So then we'll go upstairs to listen to whatever Alex Core has to tell us. Again, maybe have some of those same conversations, some of that same content that you're looking to gather. And then he'll talk for 5 to 20 minutes, depending on the given day, depending on the topics, depending on the news. And then after that, there's BP. So I head downstairs. Usually I have something to do that is in relation to the pregame show, whether that's talking to a player or maybe one of the Red Sox Foundation interviews or another promotional thing that we have to do. But I spend my time in BP kind of catching up with as many guys as I can. And a lot of times just having those casual conversations, just catching up, seeing where they're at. So that lasts for about an hour. And then after that, depending on what my pregame responsibility was, whether it's a taped report, whether it's a live report, whether it's a one-on-one interview, that'll be completed. Then I usually come up here to this very spot. You can always find me here probably about 90 minutes before first pitch, kind of working on compilating those stories or compiling those stories. And I don't know what I'm saying right now. Compiling those stories, and then getting those ready for the telecast. So then I'll go meet with the guys. I'll play by play, usually OB or whatever cast of character is in the color analyst seat. Lou Merlone, Kevin Euclid, Will Middlebrooks, whoever, and then I'll be back in here and get ready to tape the open of the show, which is usually about 15 minutes before. Sometimes we do it live. Sometimes it's on tape because of some of the pregame activities that go on. And then it's game time. So it's not until that moment, 7 o'clock or 7:10, when the first pitch is thrown, or tonight, 1:35, or this afternoon, or 1:10, 4:10 on a Saturday, whatever the case may be, that I actually feel like I can take a breath. It feels like from the moment I step into the ballpark to that moment is nonstop. So that's usually high intensity, usually very anxious at that moment. Like I'm like a little bit jittery and I'm trying to keep my cool, but it's not until then that I finally feel like I can take a breath. And then after that, I'm looking for what's going to be the first thing that I do in this game. A lot of times it's a story that I gathered earlier in the day. Sometimes it's something that I've been holding on to, or it could be talking about the day's starting pitcher. So that usually comes about the second inning or third inning, where I get back reintroduced to the game. And then after that, I kind of let the stories kind of play themselves out.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's not what I have from the pregame that goes into, or my pregame thoughts that actually go into the telecast. Is something that I remember a manager saying, or a conversation that I had earlier with one of the coaches. And I'm like, oh, this is great. And it applies to this current situation. So I'll talk to the producer, have her hop in,
Yep.
Amy Johnson. And then the game ends. They win. I do a walk off done, go into the post game clubhouse, get post game sound and interviews. And then the night is over after that. And then I do it all over again the next day for
That's right, man.
162.
That's it. That's it.
So that's it,
You get
man.
a couple days. They give you a couple days off here and there, which is
Yeah.
a little
You,
breather.
t- you
But
take a few.
and then
You take a few.
and then yeah, and then Nesson is what 150, 162. So basically, like 95% of the
Yeah.
games are on Nesson. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean,
97.2.
97.2.
Nah,
Yeah,
I
man.
don't know. I'm just
But
making up numbers.
I know you are. You do that during the game too. No, I'm just kidding. You don't do that.
Come on, man. Big
No,
J
man.
journalist. Come on.
Hey,
All
listen,
facts.
the pre and post game routine is pretty similar in terms of like timeline, getting to the ballpark. When it's a home game, obviously when it's a road game, you get into the studio. But I got here this morning, around 9 or so. Sometimes I see you in the parking lot and I holler at you. And then you come up here, kind of look at the rundown of the show that we have planned. Have a conversation with the producer. You sort of do a recap of the game the night before, and that kind of sets the stage for what you're going to have in that day's game. But we also have different guests that come on the show as well, which is it varies. So we'll have
Yeah.
our game day analyst today. It's Hall of Famer Jim Rice, who is to my right, getting ready for the show,
Who, in
and
full disclosure, did not want to be a guest, make a guest appearance on the Extra Time podcast. We're not going to
he did
hold it
not.
against him, though.
In fact, he's got his phones on. He's back to me. But anyway, he's just getting in the zone like he did back in the day. But yeah, and then
Yeah, don't mess with Jim when he's locked in.
oh man, do not mess with Jim. He's locked in. You can hear me right. Anyway, so yeah, and then we'll have our a clubhouse insider, which is somebody who wrote Peter Abraham or Rob Bradford or Julian McWilliams or Jim McCaffrey. They're usually, and I don't think Alex is with us on the pre and post game show now. He's doing 310 left with TC, but. And then there will be various guests. Like today, we have WWE wrestler Liv Morgan. And when this
Yeah,
podcast drops tomorrow, you will have already seen her throw out the first pitch here at Fenway. So I don't know a ton about WWE these days. I used to watch it back in the day.
yeah.
So
I was
I have to do
hardcore as well.
yeah, man, I have to do a little bit of homework on some of the current WWE superstars, so that can be part of the process of getting ready for the show. Is be like, all right,
Yeah.
who am I interviewing? What's their area of expertise, and how is this applicable to today's game? And so that's part of it as well. So yeah, but and then when the game starts, we're sort of watching the game. I have an in-game hit, and then whatever happens in the game is on the post-game show, and we go through it line by line, hear from the players, hear your interviews with the players in the clubhouse, and that kind of puts a bow on it, man. That's that.
So I'm very curious about this actually because I've never hosted this pre and post game show, but you follow like how do you guys come up with the topics and different segments of what you guys are going to necessarily spotlight? So a lot of times there could be a lot of things that happen in the game. You may think it's insignificant, but you really don't know. You guys are basically telling the story of the game, right? To
Yeah,
begin your show essentially. So it may be an error that we see in the fourth inning that we think is
right,
inconsequential, but it could come back to bite, if that was, the extra run or the game winning run, right?
right. So, are you asking about post game?
Yeah, post game, right?
Okay. So post game, yeah, I mean that's a good point. So what happens over the course of the game is as we watch the game, there are certain plays that happen within the game that could play a role in the outcome of the game. To your point, and so while that's happening, the producer will have our behind the scenes folks put together little packages, little video packages of a specific
Mhm.
play, maybe a pitch sequence, and that is something that might just remain on the cutting room floor. It might not see the show because at the end
Right,
of the day, a play that happens in the first inning might not have an impact on the outcome of the game, but it might have an impact. And so that's why you put that together and you sort of put that in your holster and save it if you need it. And so that applies to plays, that applies to individual player performances.
hmm
That could be like I mentioned, like a pitch sequence. So like if Tanner Houck has to face a guy and it's like a 12 pitch at bat, and Houck's pitch count ends up being really high in that game, you can look at that particular at bat and say, hey, you know what? Like Tanner Houck only able to get through, five and a third innings, could have gone longer, but X player gave him a tough at bat. And so you sort of go back to that. Let's take a look at pitch by pitch, and then the analysts will sort of break it down. So the game
yeah,
dictates what we show, how we produce the show, and then that all blows up if there's like a seventh run, ninth inning walk off comeback by the right, like so that those things can change on the fly. They can change, like at the drop of the hat. So the pregame show is more sort of you can put that together a couple hours in advance and sort
hmm
of know what's on there. Postgame show is a much different animal.
yeah, definitely. It's almost, I mean, it's very, very similar correlations actually to what I do in my small portion of the show that is similar to how you put in together an entire post game show. Because if it's a walk off situation, like you said, and they've come back 7 runs, that is in my line of questioning. I'm thinking about the biggest moments that have impacted the game, and I want to get a response on those things because we want to get the player's perspective on how that came about or how they were able to execute a situation or what went into their thought process and how they approached this particular at bat, this particular pitcher, this particular situation. So uh, it's just like a microcosm to maybe a bigger thought, which is always interesting to hear.
Yeah, because if the guy goes over three for three Ks, you're not thinking about him, and then he comes up with a walk off hit. All of a sudden, you're thinking about him, right? Because he could
Right.
that you interview, and so that could change dramatically. But yeah, it's a fun. I mean, you take a step back. It's a lot of fun, right? We're pretty lucky to do what we do, be where we are, talk to people, who are interesting. And, the other thing that I wanted to, throw out there, and I know that people listening on Spotify or Apple or iTunes aren't going to be able to see this, but so today at Fenway Park, a guy by the name of Waldron is the starting pitcher for the Padres, as you know, Jahmai, and he is the only knuckleballer in Major League Baseball right now. And
Hmm.
somebody actually had a couple of interactions with Tim Wakefield over Zoom when he started to, introduce the knuckleball into his arsenal a few years back. The director of pitching for the Padres got in touch with Wake, and they had the Zoom call. And so Waldron is here at Fenway Park pitching, and is obviously Tim Wakefield is on the front of everyone's minds today, thinking about the knuckleball. And I want to show you this is coming your way too, Jahmai. So we got these polos, and you can see right here, you got the number 49 right there on the sleeve. So
Yeah,
we'll all be wearing those today proudly, and thinking about Tim Wakefield as Matt Waldron, who I think was excellent in his comments about pitching here at Fenway Park, paying tribute to Wake, and um, did a great job articulating that.
yeah, he was great to catch up with when I talked to him. And one of the last questions I asked him was, you know, because of your relationship with Wake and how he helped you refine the pitch and essentially helped you accelerate your arrival to the big league because he kind of came out of nowhere. And, he was almost a struggling pitcher in the minor leagues and then started to dominate with the, the knuckleball, which he throws at almost a 40% clip now. And I said, the first pitch you throw tomorrow, what's the likelihood that it's going to be a knuckleball? And he said, yeah, I think so. So, what would be an awesome moment is some of the guys over here just talked about is if, he throws that knuckleball for a strike and Jaron Duran steps out of the box and, gives the fans a moment, kind of a tip of the cap to Wake and what he meant. And great day to wear that 49 patch on our polo shirt. So, and I came in today, as you can see, I got the green and the beige one. Looks like I'm part of
Yeah,
waste management or something, but I'm gonna change into the blue one because usually, I got the green pants and everything. I'm color coordinated with the Nikes. You can't see here as
yeah,
well,
yeah,
but I'm gonna change into that Wake polo because of what today represents, and with Waldron knuckleballer on the hill. And his connection to Wake, it's just like, how can you not be romantic about baseball? These are the stories that you love to hear about. So
yeah.
um, we'll see what happens.
Yeah, well, I guess this would be a good time to sort of say goodbye for now, so we can go put these polos on
Yeah.
and get ready for the game. Making history on the Extra Time podcast here on location at Fenway Park. It was a good time, good conversation. Obviously, we miss Sophia, but
Yes, we do.
she'll be joining us soon, I'm sure. And so, I guess with that, my friend, I will say goodbye for my guy Jahmai. I'm See you later.
All right, man. Be talking to you shortly. Next time, let's just get together and shoot this together. We'll figure that out, I guess, as the Extra Time podcast goes on.
Fair enough. See you
All
later.
right, man. See you soon. Thanks for listening, everybody, and watching. Talk to you.